Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour, and today is Tuesday, April 27th, 2021. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered in my over 46 years of doing therapy. These tools are available absolutely free at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the red and white bullseye or the link in the upper left-hand corner of most pages that says Start Here, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that book is that chapter of that book provides a narrative description of the primary tool in this work, which is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using for over 16 years to great advantage, improving my quality of life and relationships, and turning any negative emotion I experience into part of that infallible guidance system that we've all been gifted with. And you can actually download the tool itself. It's a free PDF file to click and download, print it off, and use it as often as you'd like. And you can also download and listen to a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, where people have called in and either been stepped through the worksheet process or given powerful testimonials about how the use of that process actively in their lives has improved their quality of their life. You can also go to your app store and download a completely free and private app. Just type in the words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, and before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. Click on it, download that, and get access to the Reality Management Worksheet, an abbreviated version of that worksheet, and a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. And we encourage people to do that soon and often because it usually prompts comments and questions. And if you have a comment or a question, that's why we're here 5 days a week in our current format, 2 hours a day. So you can give us a call at 563-999-3581 and press 1, and that'll put a little question mark by your phone number, and I'll announce you by your area code. We've also been working through the Course in Miracles lessons this year. This is the 117th day of the year. Today's lesson is another review of two lessons, Lesson 103 and 104. Lesson 103 reads, God, the Creator, being love, is also happiness. The commentary reminds me to let me remember love is happiness and nothing else brings joy. And so I choose to entertain no substitutes for love. Lesson 104 reads, I seek but what belongs to me in truth. Commentary, love is my heritage, and with it, joy. These are the gifts the Creator gave to me. I would accept all that is mine in truth. So on the hour, I can recite, God, the Creator, being love, is also happiness. And on the half hour, I can recite, I seek but what belongs to me in truth. And we've also working through the Pam Grout book, Course in Miracles Experiment, and her chapter 117 is titled, The Material World, It's a Temp Job. She quotes Debbie Handrick as saying, the ego and love are never on the same kickball team. For morning review, everything but love is make-believe. Love equals happiness and joy. So here's the summary. All apparent problems are temporary and ephemeral. Any situation that keeps me from feeling connected and ready to break out in dance, let's say the political situation or societal divisions, any of those things is a game of charades. It only seems rock solid because I keep staring at it, pointing at it, and pronouncing it to be true. It will only, quote, be true, close quotes, as long as I continue to stare and point. So, that's our Course in Miracles lesson and the Pam Grout summary. And we have 53 minutes. It's almost a record, the shortest intro in quite a while, to entertain a comment or a question, to have you suggest a topic for today, to step somebody through a worksheet process, to describe or clarify one of the many tools that Dr. Michael Rice and Jeannie make available at whyagain.org. And all you have to do to get a hold of us is either send me an email at tjh@mindshifter-academy.org or send Jeannie an email at jeanie@whyagain.org, or give us a call at 563-999-3581 and press 1. If you do that, I'll see a little question mark by your phone number and announce you by your area code. And we can have a conversation. We can have a conversation about the ancient Aramaic process of forgiveness. We can have a conversation about any lesson you want from the Tao Te Ching. We can have a conversation about, and there's a whole host of books that we have discussed on this show over the years. And if you want to tap into that list of books, you can go to mindshiftersacademy.org, and there's actually a page where I list books that we've discussed on this podcast. I haven't updated it in a while, but that list of books is like In an Unspoken Voice, How the Body Releases Trauma by Peter Levine, Welcoming the Unwelcome by Pema Chodron, Healing Depression Without Medication by Jody Skillicorn, D.O., When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron, Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud, Anatomy of an Epidemic by Robert Whitaker, a whole host of books on how to be anti-racist, The Way of Mastery, The Way of the Servant, The Gospel of Mary Magdalene by Karen L. King. The list goes on. Jesus, My Autobiography, The Gentle Art of Blessing. From Anxiety to Love by Corinne Zupko. We've actually interviewed her on the show. Leadership and Self-Deception, a whole book geared towards CEOs and corporate leadership that contain many of the core tools, or at least observations without the tools that Dr. Michael Rice has. That's by the Arbinger Institute. A Course in Miracles Made Easy, Butterflies Are Free to Fly by Stephen Davis. It Didn't Start With You, The Untethered Soul. Man, we've been at this a while. Look at all those books. Awareness by Anthony DeMello. That's one of my favorites. I read that once or twice a year most years. The Courage to Be Free by Guy Finley. Taking Flight, a book of story meditations by Anthony DeMello. Matt Kahn's book, Whatever Arises, love that. And Matt Kahn's book, Everything Is Here to Help You. I apologize if that leads some on the call to break out in hives, but and Perception, Seeing is Not Believing by James and Steph Popura. Yeah. And I didn't read anywhere near all of the books on that list. I just fanned through. So, what would be of service to you? How can we support you today? What's a topic you'd like to have us explore? I was talking to somebody earlier today about the tendency to want to fix or change somebody when we can see that they're clearly in error. And there's a part of the book, The Tao Made Easy by Alan Cohen, that I was just listening to either yesterday or this morning, that talks about that and says, how many times in your life when you were doing what you thought you wanted to do and somebody tried to tell you you're doing it wrong, how many times did that feel good to you? How many times did you just gladly flip around what you were doing and say, oh, thank you so much for pointing out my ignorance? Probably never. So when we decide we want to help someone, it's okay to offer some advice if they want it. However, the Tao, and this book by Alan Cohen about the Tao Made Easy, would strongly recommend that after we give a suggestion or some advice, that we actively work to detach our investment or identification with the outcome of the situation. If it's not ours to do, let it go and don't do it. In the Tao Made Easy, Alan Cohen quotes A Course in Miracles, where it says, when you have learned how to decide with the Creator, all decisions become as easy and as right as breathing. There is no effort, and you will be led as gently as if you were being carried down a quiet path in summer. And this is all about, this whole chapter is about learning to go with the flow, what Abraham Hicks would call the path of least resistance. And he tells a story about setting out on a plan for the day and having the weather come up and disrupt it, and other logistics come up and disrupt it, and just going with the flow. And believe it or not, things work out. They do not always work out the way we want them to, and most of the time they work out far better. It says here, does the injunction to drop resistance mean that we're to lie down and let people do things that hurt us and others? Should we not resist war and child abuse and diseases? Are we to resign ourselves and the world to pain and suffering? Not at all. The key to eradicating injustice is the attitude you hold in your quest. When you battle with something, you empower the undesirable situation. Instead, hold foremost in your mind the result you would rather create. Fight or work for your valued goal instead of against the situation you do not prefer. When Mother Teresa was invited to speak at an anti-war rally, she declined. She explained, fighting against war is another form of war. If there were a pro-peace rally, I would attend. From the Tao, 69th couplet says, this is called marching without appearing to move, rolling up your sleeves without showing your arm, capturing the enemy without attacking, being armed without weapons. If something comes up that you wish would go away, accept that it has come up for a reason and consider how you can benefit from the experience. How is this situation stimulating you to grow in ways that you would not have grown had it not come forth? Is there an unseen opportunity here? Are you being guided to make a course correction that will ultimately improve your life? Every difficulty comes with a gift in its hands. Guy Finley says, the lessons we need ride into our lives on the back of events we don't want. And the importance of the lesson is directly proportional to the degree to which we do not want the event. I bet Guy Finley has read either this book and or the Tao a number of times. Every difficulty comes with a gift in its hands. It remains a problem until you accept the gift. Upon receiving the gift, the situation is transformed, and it may resolve easily or even miraculously. Do your best to hold challenges in a higher light, and do not lose sight of the many blessings in your own life. The challenge occupies but a sector of your experience. There is much more to your life than this situation. Balance your efforts to handle this situation with soul-nurturing activities and fulfilling moments with people you love. Life is more than a matter of perspective. Life is more a matter of perspective than facts. Align with the highest perspective, and the facts will take care of themselves, or you will be precisely guided how to handle them. From the Tao, Lesson 73. The Tao of heaven does not strive, and yet it overcomes. It does not speak, and yet is answered. It does not ask, yet all its needs are met. It seems to have no aim, and yet its purpose is fulfilled. Lesson 73. I had occasion to hear a story by somebody who was dealing with a 42-year-old woman. She's got her own job. She's got her own house. She has her own car. And when the car broke down and just quit running, this 43-year-old person went into a panic. And she was completely focused on all of the facts and the evidence and not on the perspective. And what I know in my work with people, when that happens to me, is that it's not my 42-year-old self or my 60-plus-year-old self who's going into a panic. It's some younger version of me. This is why there is that bottom line observation that says, anytime I have a negative emotion or a negative thought about myself or somebody else, I can instantly know three things. And the first one is that whatever this thought or emotion is based on is a lie or a falsehood. The second thing I can know is it's not about what's going on in the moment. This is an old tape playing in my head. There is literally nothing that could possibly happen in my life that would benefit from me going into a panic. The more important the situation is, the less likely it is that panic on my side is going to produce a better result. And I talk to people about this, and some people really struggle with this. But the essence of it is, in the Way of Mastery, it's in the Course in Miracles, it says, I'm never upset for the reason I think I am. And a way to translate that is I'm never upset about what's going on in the moment. If I have an emotional upset, it's always because I'm thinking and thoughts are from the past. I'm not awake and aware in the moment and interacting directly. I'm spinning in thought, and that's what's creating the negative emotion or the negative thought. And the example I use, and I do get a lot of pushback on this, but I use the example of if there's a car accident, I'm standing on the corner and everything's fine, all of a sudden there's a car accident. And, everything was fine, and moments later there's broken glass, bent metal, and bloody bodies right in front of me. If I have a strong emotional reaction to that, a fear, an anger, a confusion, an emotional hurt, that's stuff from the past. If I'm awake and aware in the moment and I'm a competent adult, the essential events, the data points in the moment, act directly on me and my action flows. And I spring into action. If I'm a logistics expert, I start calling out orders to people. If I'm a medical expert, I start using that expertise where needed. If I have a cell phone, I start making calls to coordinate, 911 and police intervention. And if I'm, young and healthy and strong, I may go over and pry a door open and help lift somebody out of a car that might, eventually burst into flames. And it's an action that arises and flows from me being in direct awareness of life in the moment. And it does not involve thoughts that I pour mind energy into that then create emotions. And so if an accident like that happens and I'm shuddering in fear or I'm raging because I saw somebody run the stoplight and I want to go over and punch the driver, that's an old anger, that's an old fear. That's got no useful place in the moment. So I was trying to coach this person about how to interact with his friend who's 42 years old and going into a panic. And the more he talked about the logistics and the money and the potential for calling a tow truck and having the car fixed and all of these, the more he talked about that, the more she escalated. And my advice, as almost always these days in those situations, is that I stay as calm as possible and I hold a mirror up to the person who's emotionally agitated. And I refuse to talk to them about all the content and all of the logistics. And I begin where it must begin in order for those critical issues to get sorted out at a problem-solving level. And that is, I hold up the mirror and say, gee, you seem really upset. You seem to be in a bit of a panic. Let me support you in any way I can in calming down. And then we'll talk about what are the options for resolving the situation. But he talked about how the more he talked about it, the more upset she got, and the more then, she was texting him after the fact and calling him after the fact, and there was no discussion between the two of them about how upset she was. So the more they try to work with the data points, the logistics, the finances, the options for getting a car to make it to work, the more upset and agitated the person gets emotionally. Because nothing about the logistics, the money, the car, the engine breaking down, whether you call a tow truck or take it to a dealer or you take it to a local mechanic, none of that is causing the panic in a 42-year-old adult who is clearly competent, has her own job, has her own house, has her own car. And if I want to help that person resolve something, I have to help them look at the level of cause. Where are these things being caused? And if I have a strong negative emotion or a negative thought about myself or somebody else, I can instantly know it's an old tape playing. It's based in a falsehood. And if I act from that energy, I'm just going to make the situation worse. I cannot improve my current life situation by adding negative emotional energy to it. It's not possible. So the lessons I most need in life ride into my life on the back of events that I don't want. There's a talk in the book, The Tao Made Easy. It says, one of the Tao couplets says, allow your life to unfold naturally. Know that it, too, is a vessel of perfection. That's lesson 29. The next section is titled, Dismounting the Four Horsemen. The belief in the requirement of suffering and the expectation of catastrophe is established by the ego at the personal level and is projected onto the broader screen of the world. Just as we may be tempted to believe we are doomed as individuals, we may believe we are doomed as a world. Thus, we are inundated with endless prophecies of world disaster. Disasters to happen. And disasters do happen, but well-being is far more pervasive. This is something when I tell people, turn off the news, it's not the news, it's just the worst of the worst stuff from around the world brought into your home or your radio or your car. And if you focus on that, you drive yourself to distraction. Why? Because, bad things do happen, but there's far more good going on in every moment on this planet than there is negative. If all that was happening on this planet is the negative stuff you see on the news, we would have extinguished ourselves as a life form thousands of years ago. Disasters do happen, but well-being is far more pervasive. To escape from disaster, you must first escape from disaster consciousness. Extricate yourself from the dank bunker of anxious self-protection and step into the sunlight of creative vision. If there is something you can do to offset adversity, do it. But do not give your power away to fear. Align with the presence of grace, and surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, close quotes. We are told in the book of Revelation about the prophesied apocalypse, heralded by four symbolic horsemen, generally considered to be war, famine, death, and the Antichrist. Many people shudder to consider the coming of such a catastrophic epoch. What they do not realize is that the apocalypse has been around for a long time. It's nothing new. The history of humanity has been plagued by war, famine, death, and deluded egocentric antichrists. You don't need to worry about the apocalypse coming. It's been here. We've done that. We bought the T-shirt. Instead, put the apocalypse behind you and step into the post-apocalyptic age. Humanity has suffered enough, and so have you. More suffering will not buy us salvation. Pain hasn't freed us by now, and it will not do so anytime soon or ever. If pain could buy salvation, we would have all been liberated a long time ago. Also gives us the secret to finally finish the apocalypse and live free of the terror it has wrought. He recorded his map out of hell 2,500 years ago. But humanity is a slow learner. Until now, we are reading these words. Until you are reading these words, it means that on some level you're ready. So humanity has been a slow learner up until now. If you are reading these words, it means that on some level you're ready to lighten up and walk the great way. You are free to hang out in the apocalypse if you choose, but to riff on a maxim, quote, 5,000 words to the wisest are sufficient, close quotes. The apocalypse means the lifting of the curtain. That curtain is the veil of illusion that makes it appear that we are separated from love. Such a condition is impossible, since the Tao is always present and it does not depend on our awareness of it to be so. Erroneous beliefs can create all kinds of experiences unlike the actuality, but they cannot replace actuality. When we wake up from the nightmare or the curtain is lifted, we see actuality as it is. Lao Tzu assures us that reality supports us. It is only in the murky corridors of the fearful mind that things seem to have gone awry. Painful events are not a punishment or our destiny. They are an alarm clock, waking us to return to the kindly universe we have turned our backs on and claim the well-being that we deserve. Tao in the world is like a river flowing to the sea. So we have 26 minutes left. How can we support you to understand how you might be living in the mindset of the apocalypse, learning to fear the apocalypse when, in truth, the apocalypse is already here? And it's possible for each and every one of us to awaken from that false experience we're creating, the negative emotions, the negative thought patterns, that we can instantly know are false, they're an old tape playing, and if we continue to act based on those energies or emotions or thoughts, the only possible outcome is to make our situation worse. So instead of engaging in the apocalypse mindset, understand that the apocalypse isn't coming, it's here. It's war, it's pestilence, it's famine, it's humans living from the dream of separation, which is a dream and not the actuality of life. It is people claiming that they have the answer to how to connect you to your source rather than assisting you to connect consciously with the source that is in you, that has given rise to you. That, as Guy Finley says, that source of wisdom and answers that will never abandon you if you just ask to be taught. There is an infinite, constant, abundant supply that is rooted in you, and it will never abandon you. You don't have to go out on some journey looking for a teacher. Your connection to the wisdom of the ages is within you. And anyone who wants to tell you, you've got to follow these teachings, you've got to follow this guru, you've got to use this person as a mediary, an intermediary to connect you to the Creator or the true wisdom, is a trap. And it's the kind of thing that continues to feed the dream of separation, which many, if not all, of the true great spiritual teachings tell us is the only problem we have. the dream of being less than and separate from what created us. So our call-in number is 563-999-3581. How can we support you today? I should probably mention that today's a Tuesday, and so as we've been doing for pushing 17 years now, Tuesday nights herald the arrival of a Tuesday night support group. And thanks to the consequences of our decisions in interacting with coronavirus restrictions, that support group is available online. And to get information about how to join us online, you can go to mindshiftersacademy.org, and there's a separate page for the login information for Tuesday and a separate page for the Thursday group. Those participation is available absolutely free. Just go there, find the login information, get on your computer, type in the meeting ID and code number, and you'll be able to join us. We're from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. Welcome, Susan.
Hello, Dr. Tim. Good intro, delicious stuff. Hearing all those little I Ching things are really good. I have a couple of questions. One is, you often talk about how people are struggling with the shutdown and social distancing and limitations and so forth, and we're coming out of that, but I just read an interesting article in the New York Times about almost a new category of mental health diagnosis, although they don't call it that. It's not depression, but it's called languishing, and you've probably heard about this. Even our minister, we have a supplied priest in our Episcopal Church, and we're all still on Zoom, very much shut down here in Pennsylvania. And he was admitting he's new to us. He's just a supply priest till our search committee finds a priest. But he said, I have to say, I read that article. So the idea has been around, I guess. The article was today in the Times. But he said, I have been languishing. And they describe it as an inability to focus, to get things done, using distractions, to like too many Netflix series or word games. And then they make a few suggestions. One of the things that's kept Tim Bingham and me from languishing too much is the radio show and the ongoing work, which has been available right through the whole pandemic and long before, and I trust will continue. But I think I've had a tad of it too. Not sure, it is. I would just like to see what you think of that and how you have dealt with the presentations by people in your Zoom groups about that.
Well, I don't think it's come up so much as that term languishing, but there's certainly been lots and lots of disruption in people's lives. One of the things that comes to me to say is that there was a tremendous negative pushback when this first arrived. If anybody would say the new normal, and a certain percentage of people who would hear that phrase, the new normal, would generate livid anger. It's not normal. We're not going to do that. And they would just get very, very aggressive in their response to that. And so, I think part of what gives rise to this languishing is thinking that this is just going to be a temporary thing. This will just be a few months. And so they're doing tools, behaviors, distractions that they're hoping are just going to be around for a few months. Like, I'm just going to watch a whole bunch of Netflix, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it only lasts for a month or two, that's a nice little vacation. But if it's more than a month or two, now it's not such a good vacation anymore. It's a real trap. It's not very productive. It doesn't leave me feeling fulfilled. And now I'm, what this word is, now I'm languishing. Now I'm stuck in a pattern of suffering where whatever I do that I think is going to relieve the suffering isn't addressing anything at a cause level, and it leaves me feeling hollow and empty and frustrated.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting about the idea of people being so mad about the new normal thing, because if we look at what's happening in this, I was reading also in the Times how the birth rate has gone down, the pollution, certain kinds of pollution into the atmosphere have lessened because we're driving less. I don't know whether that's global and going to be continued, but people are waking up.
It was not just the driving less. It was also that factories had been slowed or closed, and so they weren't polluting as much. And there were pictures in the first few months of the shutdown of places all over the globe where, the before and after pictures where you couldn't even see the city. And now you can see the city from miles away, or you can see the mountaintops. And so there have been a lot of changes, but it's not, they didn't leave the factories shut down forever. And as soon as people were allowed to, they got right back to driving. And so now, the bounce back is there. But this is more about the idea of what's happening with the individual who's choosing an adaptation pattern that isn't fulfilling. That's just kind of like putting myself in one of those cryo tubes and putting my life on hold until this pandemic is over. And I believe it's that kind of process that leads people to feel like they're languishing, because it's an extended period of doing something that they thought was going to be just a time killer, just a little vacation. Yeah. The Alan Cohen, who wrote the book The Tao Made Easy, he talks about how his favorite vacation spot is, like walking on the beach and reading novels or whatever. And he does that for a while, and then it drives him nuts. He can't just go live there and do that, because he has this other impulse to be creative, to interact with people, to hold his seminars where there's healing and there's groups of people talking through some of their deepest troubles. And so the Tao is not just go with the flow and go off to some beach someplace and be a beach bum. And the Tao is do a little of that, do a little of this, back and forth, working and being productive, relaxing, recharging your batteries, getting back into the flow, being productive, being active. And what a lot of people have done in response to the coronavirus restrictions, is it's all over the map. Some people have just refused to follow any restrictions to begin with. They won't wear a mask and they won't restrict their activities. And other people have just completely shut down, and they don't go out even with a mask on, and they have all their food delivered, and they leave it in the garage for a week untouched, so that any microbes or virus particles might fall away. But those people who have made adjustments at a temporary level to just bide their time or kill time or numb out, that's what I believe is feeding the languishing. Yeah, because they're not finding a way to pursue what Michael Rice would call their secondary purpose in new circumstances. So they're not fulfilled. They're not living into their purpose in life in any constructive way. They're just hoping to bide their time until they can get back to whatever it was that they called their life prior to this.
I have found with this pandemic time is that I've been given permission to slow down, although slowing down, I realized, is one of my, going fast is one of my pseudo solutions, and I was going to suggest that to Michael Rice to add to his list, his long list of pseudo solutions, is to rush, because that gave me a sense of purpose, and it was a way of not facing things and yet feeling busy. I mean, I've been using Tim Bingham and I are like the tortoise and the hare. And when we go for a walk, I sometimes jog around him as he goes forward, because he walks, to my mind, astoundingly slowly. And so, we've got kind of a joke, is I'll be running around him in little circles, but I've been practicing taking his pace. And it's only like doing this work that since last Friday and over the weekend that I've actually felt as if it's okay and possible to be slowed way down. But the pandemic time has also given permission, I bet, to lots of us to take life a little more easily and take a little pressure off. I hope that's true for other people.
Well, for some, that's an option, right?
Yeah,
for others,
it is
created such hardship in terms of finances and child care and, fear of foreclosure on the house and being evicted. And so it's just all over the map.
Yeah.
I liked the thing that came out early on in the pandemic where they said, hey, we're all in the same boat. And then somebody came out and said, not even close. We're all in the same storm.
True.
But some people are on a cruise liner, fully stocked with food and people waiting on them hand and foot. And some people are on a piece of cardboard, trying to stay afloat, treading water. So the individual circumstances are dramatically different.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been torturous for a lot of people from a financial perspective. It's been torturous for a lot of small business owners. They've had to close. It's been torturous for a lot of people who are identified as extroverts because the lack of connection, direct, intimate connection with other people is a negative for them, whereas introverts, they're thriving. Or they're only mildly uncomfortable with the restrictions and disruption.
Right.
So it's all over the map. There aren't any pat answers for this.
I do hope that, and I bet it's true, that a lot of things like business trips will go on Zoom so that people won't need to fly and stay in hotels so much, because the business that they need to do can be done over Zoom with so much less difficulty. And I'm in my teaching, I hope to keep my students from Colorado, North Carolina, Maine, Cape Cod. I hope that we can continue to have Zoom even when we go back in person. So it's going to be very interesting. It's new, but it's not normal yet, I guess. But you're right. I have been very lucky. Tim and I have been very lucky because we've had it much, much easier than young adults who are working, young parents with small kids, teachers, hospital workers. So many people have really taken it on the chin. It's true.
And it has required dramatic and sometimes very high-intensity adjustments in people's lives.
Right.
time, intelligence, money, and energy often stretch to their limits.
Right. Well,
And
no
what
other
they're
hand is
recommending, go ahead. You got another comment or question?
Well, I have another question, but I was going to ask if anybody else's hand came up because it's really a change of subject.
Go ahead, change the subject. We have an agreement. If somebody else pops up a hand, I will let you know.
Okay, good. What is your take on what a healing crisis is? I know, I'm avoiding
I'll tell you what, it's a loaded question. That's what it is. It's a sticky wicket, as my grandmother would say.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
okay.
The phrase for various people means different things. And, I first encountered it many years before I ever knew about Dr. Michael Rice, when I was learning about homeopathic remedies.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told that I had this or that problem, and with migraines or whatever, you should go and see this homeopathic doctor. But now understand that when you go see a really good homeopathic doctor, you're going to get much more sick in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever symptoms you're going to relieve, they're going to get worse before they get better. I said, what are you talking about? They said, well, yeah, it's called a healing crisis. And they'll give you these homeopathic remedies that, basically are just energetic representations of substances. It's not the actual substance. And some people are going to say there's nothing to it and it's all quackery, but it's powerful stuff and blah, blah, blah. And so the idea is the healing crisis is, in that work, it's the exacerbation of symptoms that you're trying to relieve as you're detoxifying the system, the body, the energy system that was giving rise to the symptoms. So, in that sense, that's the definition of a healing crisis from the homeopathic medicine or remedy perspective. Now, the way Dr. Michael Rice is using it is a little bit more expansive. It is any of the negativity that you experience as you increase your vitality and do more of the right stuff, as he calls it. It has to do with diet and mindset and sleep and rest and drinking good water and flushing toxins out of your system and being willing to do the forgiveness process, which is to dismantle the energies that I'm holding on to or I've identified with, which are really at the source of my upset. And the more I increase my vitality, and my body says, oh, good, Tim, you've got the vitality to get rid of this level of upset or that level of toxin, then as it's moving out of my system, I get to re-experience what it was like as it was being put into my system. And that could be the physical, the mental, or the emotional perspective. And Michael Rice has his way to talk about each of those. So physically, it's any negative symptom I've ever had and fatigue. And mentally, it's any negative thought I've ever had and depression. And emotionally, it's any negative emotion I've ever had and confusion. So that's...
I lost the last part. You blinked out. Say that last thing again, Dr. Kim.
For the emotions, it's any negative emotion I've ever had and confusion. And that's what Dr. Michael Rice talks about when he's talking about the symptoms of healing or the healing crisis. Am I sure about what?
I wondered if you had flipped those two last ones. I thought confusion was part of the mental thing and then the emotional was depression. Doesn't matter. It probably is. You're probably right. I probably misspoke, but they're there, right? They're potentially unpleasant experiences I have, even though I'm doing all the right things, and I recently hit a new level of vitality, and then all of a sudden
I have more of the negative up in my face or my experience.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so, and that, Michael Rice has a very, I would say it's kind of a purist perspective on this. So he says everything is energy, and everything is going to just realign as soon as you realign your energy. And, from gray hair or white hair going to black, and bones healing and knitting together, and all. He's in his various talks. You might have heard him talk about that in that 2-hour lecture recently. He's been talking this way for a lot of years, right? And so from that perspective, he's a purist about how everything that is a negative physical, mental, or emotional experience that occurs when you're doing more of the right things is just a healing crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that in various talks from Dr. Rice and other really good spiritual teachers over the years about the healing crisis business is that one of the most important factors in how much of it I'm going to experience and how painful it's going to be and how long it's going to take, one of the most important factors in that is my willingness. So if I get tight or tense and I'm, spinning around with a headache and stomach cramps, and I'm just angry that this is happening to me and I want it to go away, and I run for the ibuprofen or the Tylenol or whatever, then I have resistance to the process.
Right.
And so it's going to be a lot more uncomfortable for me than if I soften and breathe and take time to rest and maybe soak in a tub or, do yoga and breath work and more worksheets and take a day or two off work and let the process flow without my resistance to it. And that's a huge component or a huge factor in how much I'm going to feel of the negativity that would be involved in this process that Michael Rice would call a healing crisis.
Well, it seems like all makes sense, but I think I've been in one for the last couple of days, and it's extremely messy as far as really knowing what's going on and not being able to see beyond it very well, and really resorting to, like looking at a doorknob just to reassure myself that I'm here and this is right now and everything's okay right now, and breathing and doing very basic things, not even knowing what's going on. But I was very reassured by the fact that Jeannie went through some incredible... Are you taking off, Tim? Okay, bye. See you later. Good luck. Jeannie mentioned that after she had been... Are we at the end of the hour? Let me look. Yeah, we're practically there. Well, this is probably a good way to tie right over into Michael, because Jeannie went through a day of intense depression, and that has been such a help to me to remember that she had said that about her own process, because I'm going through the same thing, and her having done it so recently is just reassuring, that's all. But nothing seems to have sharp edges around here. Anyway, thanks for talking about these things.
Well, you're welcome and deserving. Thank you. And Jeannie just popped on the switchboard, so she doesn't know that you were talking about how reassuring it was for you when you heard her talking about her time of depression and in the healing crisis. So, I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. And I will hopefully welcome Jeannie Rice and turn on her microphone.
Thank you for doing that. My computer was running a little slow there getting it on. Thank you.
All right. Blessings. Have a great show.